This is Life Lessons with your boy, Davyne. Make some noise.
Stop it. You're far too kind. I'm just a man. I'm just a man. A smart man, but still a man. Thank y'all. Be seated, be seated. Stop it. Stop it. Thank y'all for coming out to my life lessons. Yeah. That's right. Is Brooklyn in the house? I guess not. You know, Brooklyn isn't always in somebody's house. I want to welcome you all out tonight. Thank y'all for coming out. This is Life Lessons with your boy Davyne, and we're going to talk about Bathsheba. And I know there's two questions that people want to ask me. First, who is Bathsheba, and why would you make a song about her? Well, let me answer your first question. Well, according to the Bible, Bathsheba was a woman that committed adultery with King David. And if you're not familiar with adultery, that means that when you step out of your marriage, when you fornicate with somebody else other than your husband or your wife. And if you're just dating someone or have a fiance or something like that, then it's called cheating. So, Bathsheba and David had committed adultery. And David already had a few women that he was married to. So David already had like 3 wives. So, this is the same David that was a little shepherd boy that used to watch the sheep for his father. And this is the same David that whenever a lion or a bear would come and carry off one of the sheep from the flock, David would actually run behind the lion or the bear and fight it and rescue the sheep out of the mouth or the paws of the lion and the bear. And then David would fight the lion and the bear to the death. Wow. I don't think I could never do nothing like that. I wouldn't run behind a lion or a bear if I had an AK and 3 grenades in my hand. I just ain't got that kind of faith. God's still working on me. But this is the same David that God raised up to kill Goliath with his slingshot. And the same David that wrote all those beautiful poems in the book of Psalms. And the same David that God raised up for being a little shepherd boy to being the king of all Israel, to becoming King David. But yet and still, with all of that, he still committed adultery and sinned against God with Bathsheba. And now let me answer your second question. Davyne, why would you even make a song about Bathsheba? What's that all about? Well, because the song is about being tempted like King David was by Bathsheba. And we all are tempted in our daily lives. But a lot of believers think that as long as you ignore a situation and pretend it ain't there, that it'll just magically go away. But it doesn't go away. And these are the situations that we deal with day after day that we need to talk about so that we can bring about healing so people can know how to deal with these situations. And I believe with calling a thing a thing. And that's what I'm doing with Bathsheba. I'm calling a thing a thing. And see, Bathsheba doesn't necessarily have to just be a woman. Bathsheba can stand for anything that has a strong hold on you in your life. And anything that causes you to have lustful eyes, anything that takes you off of your walk with Christ, and anything that tempts you to the point that causes you to submit. That's what Bathsheba represents. And now, let's get ready for me to tell the story my way. I'm not gonna get all deep like some people like to get. I'm gonna make it plain, very plain, so y'all join me in the Hollywood of my mind as I break it down, the story of Bathsheba and King David. Well, it was one spring evening in Jerusalem, and King David was chilling in his palace. And why was King David chilling in his palace when King David was supposed to be out on the battlefield with the Israel army? David was supposed to escort the army to battle like all kings do. But David was feeling himself on this day. David did not go. Instead, he sent a guy named Joab to escort the soldiers out into battle. Now, who Joab was, you had to take that up with your pastor. I just know he had something to do with the army. But David was back at the palace, probably running around in some clean white socks and just sliding across those marble floors and just enjoying himself, just having a whale of a time. And I can see him now walking around in that palace, just looking at all the gold here and all of the chandeliers and all of the nice things, and security following him around the house, you know, because he is the king and they want to make sure that he's protected at all costs. So here David is, he makes his way up to the roof of the palace. Him and his security, bodyguards, whoever they were, they up there just walking around, and Dave up there just looking over the palace and looking out there at the city and probably saying to himself, I am the king of the world. So as he walking around on the roof and just looking down, he sees something that gets his attention. I can see him now. He looks down and he looks and he sees this woman bathing all out in the open on her balcony. And the first thing King David said was, good goobly woobly. Nah, for real, he probably did say that. And then he probably said, who is that? And security probably been like, who? Her, down there bathing in the open. So the security look over the roof. They're like, man, shorty can't be from around here. So he said, listen, this is what I need you to do. Go down there and tell her that King David needs to see her. No. Tell her your majesty needs to see her. No. Tell her the head man in charge needs to see her. So security said, all right, I'm going. So I can see him now. He's running down the spiral staircase of the palace. He's running around. He gets down to the marble floors and he's running across the marble floors. He gets to the double doors and he's out the double doors, and he's running down the long driveway, and now he's out of the palace gates and he's making his way around there to Bathsheba's house, and he's bamming on the door. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. He's bamming on the doors. And then Bathsheba comes to the door, still wet with a towel around her. She opened up the door, and the first thing the security says is, good goobly woobly. How you doing? You from around here, shouting? And she just looking at him like, what are you doing at my door? What do you want? He was like, can I come in for a second? You married? You got a boyfriend? What do you want? He said, listen. The dude want to see you. What dude? You know, the majesty, the man in charge. She like, who? King David, girl. And she's like, King David want to see me? He's like, yes, ASAP. She's like, okay, tell him I'll be on my way. I'll be over there. So she slams the door. So Bathsheba right now is running around frantic in her house because the king wants to see her. Now, when the king wants to see you, you really don't have a choice. You have to go. But Bathsheba was saying to herself, she didn't know why the king wanted to see her, but it's an honor. And you just can't step in front of the king looking any kind of way. So she's going to her drawer and she's looking for the sexiest dress she can find. So she grabs the sexiest dress and she throws it on. And now she's looking for the highest pair of stone stilettos that they probably had back in them days. And she slides them on her feet. And she's getting ready to go over to the royal palace. And she's on her way out the door and she thinks, oh, I don't have any smell good on. So she runs back in and she grabs her bottle of Nicki Minaj perfume and she sprays it on. And she douses herself in the smell good. Then she makes her way out the door, boom. And she's running over to the palace. And she's through the gates. She's running up the long driveway. Now she's standing at the door of the palace. She rings the doorbell. And then the door opens. And this same security guard is standing there, but now he got a whole different attitude. Now he's trying to act like the royal security. Here you go.
Welcome to King David's royal palace.
And she looking at this dude like, you tripping. You the same dude that was just around the corner trying to holler at me. Don't act all royal now. Where Dave at? So she looks, and then here comes Dave. King David, that is. He's coming around the corner. He got on his flowing white robe. He got on his Marc Jacob watch. He all flashy, looking all cool in the palace. And the Bible says that Bathsheba came to the palace. She enters into David's bedroom where she sleeps with him, even though David had found out before she came that she was a married woman, and not just married, she was married to one of the best soldiers in the Israel army, a true warrior. But that did not stop David from carrying out his sinful act. He slept with Bathsheba anyway. So I don't know how many times, or if it was just one time that they had sex, but after a while, Bathsheba came to David and told him that she was pregnant. And the situation has changed for King David now. So I can see David now pacing around the floor of the palace, knowing that he has blatantly sinned against God. He has that on his conscience. And then he's thinking to himself, if the people finds out, if her husband finds out, and he's trying to figure out a way how he can cover up his sinful act. This is the same David that wrote them poems in the book of Psalms, the one that killed Goliath, the one that wrestled the lions and the bears with his bare hands. This is the same David, but yet and still, he committed this sin with Bathsheba. So now he's thinking in his mind, how can I cover it up? How can I cover it up? And he's frustrated. He's walking back and forth in the palace. But see, if David had been where he was supposed to be, out on the battlefield, then none of this would have been taking place. So as David's walking around frustrated, I can see his security now come in. They look at him and they said,
King David, why do you look so stressful, my lord? I can see all of the pain and anguish on your face. Who did this to the king? Who?
Man, talk normal right now, man. I got this chick pregnant, man. Don't be talking like that to me right now. Talk real. And he be like,
what? You got who pregnant?
Oh boy, girl, you know.
Bathsheba?
Yes. And I don't know what I'm gonna do, so leave me alone. So here's David. He's frustrated, sitting at the house trying to figure out what can he do. He's shameful against God because he knows God sits high and he looks low and he sees everything. But not only is he worried about God, he does not want the people of Israel to know what he did. So as David's sitting around, a thought pops in his head. Yes. So he tells the security to come in. Here, take this note to Joab, and I need you to do it right now. So the security leaves and he runs and he takes the note to Joab out on the battle. And Joab reads the note, and the note tells him to please release Uriah, which is Bathsheba's husband, of his duties and send him back home. And I can imagine Joab looking at this letter like, don't King David know that we're at war? He want me to send the best soldier we got home, relieve him of his duties? But when the king says something, you better not ask no questions, you just better do it. And that's what Joab did. He released Uriah of his duties and sent him back to King David. Now as we fast forward, here it is, Uriah standing before King David. And King David standing there, appearing to be compassionate about the war. So he's asking Uriah, how is Joab? How are the soldiers doing? Are we winning on the battlefield? He's asking all of these questions. And then he tells Uriah, I had relieved you of your duties because you was doing such a great job. You're the best soldier we have. And I wanted you to come home and spend some time with your wife. Go home to Bathsheba, eat, drink, and enjoy your wife. And I mean, really enjoy your wife. If you don't do nothing else, please enjoy your wife. And let me pause right to say, the reason David was being so nice to Uriah, it wasn't because David was honoring him for being such a great soldier. David's little evil plan was he was hoping Uriah would go home, eat, drink with his wife, make love to her like any man would do that came home from war, so that Uriah would think it was him that had gotten Bathsheba pregnant, and David would be scot-free. At least as long as Bathsheba didn't tell anyone. At least that's what David was hoping would happen. So once again, he tells Uriah, go home to your wife, enjoy your wife, and have a merry night. So Uriah leaves, and when he leaves, Dave calls security and says, hey, go find something nice and send a gift to Uriah and Bathsheba from King David. So David goes back and probably lay up with his wives and thinking that the situation is almost under control. So he's a little more relaxed right now. Uriah's home with his wife, and like any soldier that would come home, they would go be with their wife in the manner which David was hoping that he would do. But what David did not know was that Uriah did not go home. Instead, he slept in the palace entrance with his master's servants. Why would he do that? Because Uriah was such a good soldier that there was no way he felt like he could go home and eat, drink, and enjoy his wife and have a whale of a time like David wanted him to do, knowing that his soldiers, his fellow soldiers, was out on the battlefield dying and under bad conditions. He just could not do it. That's just the type of soldier he was. So he denied himself of his wife, his home, and all of the luxuries and having a good time. And instead, he slept in the entrance of the palace with his master's servant. Wow. He slept there with the servants all throughout the night. So when the security or whoever went and took the gift to Uriah, I can see him now knocking on the door, boom, 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 boom. She opens the door. He said, here's a gift from King David for you and Uriah. And she's like, well, he's at war, but I'll make sure. He's not here? No, he's out on the battlefield. So the first thing the security party thinking is Uriah went to another chick house. So he said, all right, well, okay. And he leaves. So he runs back to David. And then he finds out that where Uriah was. So he goes and tells David, hey, Uriah did not even go home last night. So David's looking like, what? What you mean he didn't go home? He slept in the entrance of the palace with your servants all throughout the night. So now David is frustrated. He goes to Uriah and he asked him, he said, hey, you didn't go home? You didn't go enjoy your wife and eat and drink? And Uriah said, no, King David. Why? Weren't you out on the battlefield all that time? Didn't you want to go home to your wife? That's what normal people do. But Uriah was such a great soldier, he told David there was no way I could go home and enjoy my wife and act like everything is all good. And my fellow soldiers is out there dying on the battlefield, and their sleeping conditions is unthinkable, and the unthinkable is happening out there, and we're fighting for God's land. I would never do such a thing to you, King David, as long as you live. Never. So I can see King David right now just sitting here looking at this wonderful soldier as he speaks. So David tells Uriah, okay, you can stay here one more night, and then I'm gonna send you back on the battlefield. And Uriah said, okay. So David was hoping that since he told him he was gonna be there one more night, that Uriah would finally go home to his wife and make love, and then he could just pretend that they would just be pretending basically that he had gotten his wife pregnant. Oh, but King David's little evil plan backfired again, because Uriah slept in the entrance of the palace on that same night again. He did not even go home to his wife Bathsheba. Didn't even go by to check on her. Didn't even see if she was okay or needed anything. Didn't even go by to say hi. He stayed there, and he was getting ready to go back to war. So King David called Uriah and said, hey, I need you to take this letter to Joab and make sure you give it to him. Guard this letter with your life. So here it is, Uriah. He's a faithful soldier, a wonderful warrior. He's guarding that letter with everything he got. because King David entrusted it in me, and I'm gonna make sure that Joab gets this letter. And he's running and he's making his way back to the battlefield. So when he finally makes his way back, he goes up to Joab and said, this letter is from King David. He entrusted me to give it to you. So Joab walks off and he reads the letter. And the letter is telling Joab that he is instructing him, King David is instructing Joab, that he wants Uriah put on the front line in the heaviest battle, that when they are under attack and when the heaviest battle is taking place, he wants the soldiers to fall back so that Uriah can be killed in the line of duty. Wow. Even with all of my pathetic ways, all of my shameful ways, all of the things that I would go to the grave before I tell anybody that I did, I could never do what David did. Here this man is running back with a letter that was pretty much his death sentence, that was telling him to put this man on the front line so he could be killed. Not for any reason but for David to hide his sin. But he wasn't hiding it from God because God knew it. God saw it when it happened, but David was trying to hide it from the people. He didn't care how he would hide it, even if Uriah had to die. That's what happened. So when Bathsheba finds out that her husband had died at war, the Bible says she mourned him. She mourned him like a wife would mourn her husband for days. But King David, being who he was, he moved her into the palace and made her his wife. Wow. The same David that was the shepherd boy that ran behind the lions and the bears and freed the little sheep out of their paws or their mouths or whatever they was in, that entrusted in God to fight the bears and the lion to the death, that slew King Goliath when everybody was afraid of big, tall Goliath. Little shepherd boy kills him with a slingshot because of the power that God had invested in him. The same David that wrote these beautiful songs in the book of Psalms, these poems, the same David that God raised up to be the king of all Israel, the one that was known for praying. Everybody in Israel knew that God had made him king. But David abused his power like most people do. When they get their positions and they titles, they abuse it and they take advantage of the innocent. Because you can't say that Bathsheba was trying to entice David. She didn't know he was going to be out there on the roof. Who knows why she was out there bathing in the open? Who knows? But this is King David, and what the king wants, he has. And he wanted Bathsheba. And then they had their baby. And the baby was named Solomon. One of the wisest, or the wisest man in the Bible. Wrote the book of Proverbs that we get all our wisdom out of. So God took that bad situation that started off so wrong, that started off with adultery on Bathsheba's part and King David's part, but yet still God used it for his glory. That's how God works. That's how God works. That's why I wrote the song about Bathsheba, because we go through things. God said that David was a man after my own heart. David didn't say that. God said that about David. David was a man after my own heart. Even though David committed all those sins, yet God saw something in him. But a lot of theologians will make an excuse and find a reason of why God would say that, because David was so in tune with his spirit man. He just knew when David knew how to repent and turn from his ways, and they come up with everything to justify why God could still use David, but they will not justify another person that's right here on this earth that makes the same mistakes, but they will ridicule them and criticize them for the rest of their life. That's what we do as people. But God saw differently in David. Some people have done less than David on this earth and will never ever be respected by people again. And this is what this is about. That God can and will use anybody. Anybody. God will. Nobody is exempt. No one can escape. You're going to always run into these situations. You don't know what you're going to do until the situation arrives. I like to tell people that we all are just one right, wrong situation away. As soon as the right, wrong situation comes, it'll show you what you're made of. All that scripture quoting and all that stuff won't work when the right, wrong situation is presented before you. What will you do? King David did what he felt like he wanted to do. And God used his situation and still got the glory out of it. I thank y'all. I love that story. I hope y'all understood it. I tried to make it a cool story, but it's a serious story, a powerful story. And you can get more in depth, you can read it for yourself, but I just wanted to bring it to life for those that don't have time to open up a Bible, that don't go to church, that don't listen to sermons, that really don't care about Christianity, but yet still have an inquisitive mind and want to know. I'm here for you. This is your boy Davyne. Thank y'all for coming out to Life Lessons on Bathsheba. Holla at your boy. Deuces.